Good morning. We're continuing with the laws of Megillah, laws of Purim, and we're on Tafresh Pei Zayin 687 2. Mevadlin Talmud Torah lishmoa mikra Megillah. One should stop learning Torah in order to hear Megillah. We know that learning Torah is equal to all the other mitzvahs. It's extremely important mitzvah, but nevertheless, we stop learning Torah in order to hear the Megillah. Kal v'chaymer l'shar mitzvah shel Torah shekula nidcha mipnei mikra Megillah. So he says, all the more so for other mitzvahs that we stop doing them in order to hear the Megillah. Right? Megillah is only a rabbinic commandment, but nevertheless, we stop doing other Torah commandments, even studying Torah, in order to hear the Megillah. She'ein lecha davar shenidcha mikra Megillah mipanav. Nothing gets pushed off for mikra Megillah, meaning reading Megillah takes precedence. Chutz, except one case, memeis mitzvah she'ein lo kaivrim. A mace mitzvah which doesn't have anyone to bury it according to its needs. There is something called a mace mitzvah. Mace mitzvah means a person is walking down the street and he sees there's a body. So that body has to be buried in order to honor the deceased. It's considered disgraceful for a human being to just be sitting out there like that. So it's a mitzvah to bury him. So that is the only case where that's the only case of a mitzvah which pushes off mikra Megillah. That somebody who, let's say, is walking to shul and he finds a mace mitzvah, he buries the body and then goes and he hears Megillah. Now that only applies when there's time to do both of them, meaning you have time to bury the body and it still won't be too late to hear the Megillah. But if you don't have time to do both, no mitzvah gets pushed off for reading the Megillah. And that which you bury the body is only when you have time to read the Megillah afterwards. So if you're running to shul and the time for reading the Megillah, you won't have time to bury the body and to read Megillah. So you read the Megillah and then go back to the body afterwards. Okay. So let's start with the Mishnah Brura. Sif Katan Zayin, number 7. Mevadlin Talmud Torah. Rotzelamer, this means to say, after Talmud Torah, Shakol Keneged Kol HaMitzvahs, meaning the Shulchan Aruch has to tell us this because studying Torah is equal to all the mitzvahs. So you might think, well, if it's equal to all the mitzvahs, I don't have to stop learning to hear Megillah. No, you have to stop learning to hear Megillah. And even though it's only a rabbinic mitzvah. Va'afilu haisa Talmud Torah shel Chabura Gedola, now, even if your mitzvah of learning Torah is with a large group, with 100 people, you give a class to 100 people, you can imagine all the mitzvahs, right? It's a mitzvah to learn by yourself, but all the more so when you do it with so many people, it's such a Kiddush Hashem, and all those people learning. Nevertheless, you have to stop for listening to the Megillah. Nevertheless, you have to go to hear the Megillah with the congregation because of the mitzvah of Rov Am Hadras Melech. There's a special beautification of the mitzvah to do it with a lot of people. So if you have the opportunity to go to two shuls with everything else being equal, you should go to the shul with a lot of people so you can fill the mitzvah of Rov Am Hadras Melech. Obviously, I'm talking about in a normal year. When there's a pandemic, we should social distance and stay away from people. But in general, there's a mitzvah to do mitzvahs with a lot of people. Now, it's important to point out that this also applies to a sin, right? A sin is worse if you join it with a lot of people. So there's this concept by a sin also. But a mitzvah should be done with many, many people, if possible. So the Kasav Chayadam writes, Mikol Maka Misha Mispal Kol Hashana Bikvius B'minyan Hamiyuchad Lo Lehispal Hasham Ein Sarech Leilech Lebeis HaKnesses. He says, however, if you have, let's say, a minyan that you daven at all the time, then you can read Megillah in that minyan. You don't have to go to the big shul where they learn Megillah. Okay, let's stop here, and then next time we'll continue explaining the rest of this Shulchan Aruch, where he talks about Mace Mitzvah, when a person finds a dead body, when he's going to hear the Megillah. But we see how important it is to hear the Megillah, which is a publication of the miracle which God did for us, right? When the Jewish people on Purim, we were exiled from the first temple, so we no longer saw God's hand openly anymore. and we were in exile. So this was the first time that the Jewish people saw God's providence behind the scenes and how He manipulates events to take care of His people. So it's a very, very important message that we have to instill in ourselves, and we see how important it is from the fact that we have to stop doing even the greatest mitzvahs in the Torah to listen to the Megillah. Wishing everyone a warm and happy day.